Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Excited to have my buddy Phil here. He has just tremendous experience during the last downturn handling short sales and REOs on a huge scale. And there is another downturn coming. I think some of us thought it would have happened before now. We don't know when it's coming. It is coming for sure, but you got to prepare for it either way. That's what we're going to talk about today. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good to see you, buddy. So I'm excited to talk about this because I think, the truth is I never did any short sales. We tried a bunch of stuff and we tried to work with people. It just never worked out. I was more of a marketing direct to seller guy and really never didn't buy at the auction. I didn't do a lot of that, but I saw a lot of people that were very successful with it. And it's obviously a big part of this industry whenever those busts happen, whether I'm buying directly from that or just the fallout of the fact that the market is going down, benefits all real estate investors, I guess, if you're prepared. That's what we're talking about today, being prepared for this, right? Whether you're buying directly from banks or from REO agents or what, you need to prepare for it. So I'm just talking in circles now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like because that was basically how you cut your teeth. You got in right before that time. So talk a little bit about your how you got started.
Yeah, so when I was still in high school, Blue Check Enterprises was a regional property preservation or field service company in my area. They were lucky enough to give me a shot as an employee. I did my first eviction at 15 years old. I still remember to this day. I didn't even have a license. Once I graduated from high school, I opened up as an independent contractor and covered Erie and Niagara counties from the preservation aspect, as well as did a little bit of traveling abroad, so to speak, New Jersey and some other areas as a field trainer. Due to the influx inventory, we needed more contractors. After had a couple of years off in the industry and ended up developing a relationship with Metro, a local brokerage here. Got back into preservation, into the field service side of things, and I graduated into becoming a broker agent. My primary job was to set as is and as repaired values on behalf of the servicers. Generally speaking, at that point, there's no bank involved, as well as developing liquidation strategy. So approximately 15 years I've been in mortgage default servicing or foreclosures in general.
Yep. And Phil's in Buffalo, New York, for those of you listening. So I think the shakeout happened differently. Like in and I think in the Northeast, generally, it took longer to unwind from the downturn in the market than it did in like Texas or Southern markets where it wasn't probably as bad. They're not litigation states. They're basically have
litigation states. Exactly.
So those all take longer. Yep. So it's just a matter of everybody listening to this, your market is different based on how they handle foreclosures. That determines how fast and I guess long this process or opportunity, I guess, takes, right?
Exactly. I mean, you guys that are lucky enough not to be in a judicial state are going to see the benefit far before us. But that, I guess, comes down to prospecting. If you know what you're looking for ahead of the curve, it may be there. I guess, as we were kind of talking a little before, it's going to end up in a short sale position. Everybody's going to be so over leveraged for the most part. The bank's going to have to be able to cut a loss on it.
Do you think this next time around the banks will be a little bit better equipped to deal with short sales more so than going through the foreclosure process and all that? I mean, do you think that they would prefer that, right? It's faster and easier.
So on every property assignment we'd get, ironically, the first thing it would say is if the press approaches, walk away. So I'd like to think that they've learned from their mistakes in the past and they're going to handle this in more of a professional manner. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a financial institution. So whatever's going to benefit their checkbook the most is is going to shake down.
Yeah.
There's so much, the paper transfers so many times in the secondary market from the larger, I guess, institutional investors or people raising money. You got to get yourself involved with the REITs essentially, or a step below. Um,
Yeah.
Wilmington Trust, Pretium, Saline, Dakota. I mean, it's unbelievable how many times one house would transfer. We'd get an initial lock change order for the same property on behalf of 5 different servicers. So it's just keeping track of who owns the asset.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, in terms of like preparing for this is what we're going to talk about today is, we're going to talk about relationships. What are the right relationships to have, how to prepare from a funding standpoint, because one of the things that happened during the last downturn is a lot of people that had a lender and they relied too much on one or two lenders. Like sometimes those lenders went away and they're like, oh my God, I've got all this opportunity, but I don't have money. And so you got to prepare from a funding standpoint. And then how to build up your buyers list. Like if you're looking to assign and wholesale more deals, like the buyers that will be there, again, they need capital too. So it might be a different group of buyers that you're selling to after a downturn than you were over the past couple of years, because some of those folks might go away. So let's talk about kind of relationships. What are some of the key relationships? Because as you know, there are some gatekeepers to access properties, whether they're short sales or REOs or whatever. Who are some of those gatekeepers that people should start trying to build relationships with now?
So, I mean, your local foreclosure brokers and REO agents, get in touch with them. Excuse me 1 second. And develop a relationship. If I guess you're trying to bribe your way into somebody's pocket, maybe take your next rehab project and ask them to list it, or and try and develop a relationship on their buyers list.
How do you know who those brokers are? Like now, where we're at, where we can't really tell, there hasn't been as much activity. At some point, the activity just ticks up. How do you know who those people are going to be now?
So, I mean, the strong survive. At least in my market, there's 1 or 2 names, Scott Walters, George Correa, that have been in the industry forever. So, I mean, I'd look in that direction as well. If you're familiar with your market, you should know the names. If not, if you're familiar in the MLS, you can search the type of sale, whether it's traditional, bank-owned, REO, short sale, et cetera, and you'll see a commonality among the names. So that would be the best way to get in touch with them. If you're not an agent broker without access to the MLS, Zillow. I mean, they will say foreclosure on there and highlight that the property is bank owned, and you'll see a commonality in the names.
Okay. Okay. So probably, and you're saying probably, because I know during the last downturn here, there were some really big brokers that they seem to just kind of dominate, right? So maybe look them up from the last downturn, because those guys probably aren't gone.
The auction platforms as well. A lot of the servicers are turning to auction.com, Zoom, Hoopzoo, to solicit, to market that way. So that's another avenue of obtaining.
Yep.
Although right now there's no inventory on there. It's a battle in itself to get anything, but in time the market has to shift. The big question is when.
Yeah. So what other kind of relationships are key to have to kind of prepare for this?
So my buyers list ended up transforming into my lenders list. Being a foreclosure agent broker here locally, I joke and I refer to myself as a drug dealer. I'm selling a product that everybody wanted. It just seemed to happen that this product was real estate. But by developing a relationship with the big guys in my area, they have I'm stuttering. Have subsequently developed into the lender position in some relationships. Additionally, again, I've sold, well, I don't think I mentioned, sold about 1,000 foreclosures in my career. I know where to turn. The bigger property managers, I know what they're looking for, whether it's in the Niagara Falls or the South Buffalo, North Buffalo areas. The rehab guys, I know who the major players are, and I know what they're looking for. Everything is relationship based.
Yeah. It's interesting too, having been in the business for a while, is I know like there's so many people in the real estate investing industry now, like wholesalers and kind of newer folks that have come up in the last few years, they don't have the benefit yet of seeing a couple market cycles. But once you do, you realize, and when you're a wholesaler and that's pretty much all you do, like you can never stop buying. So you don't really see that you don't see that there are some players, for example, that when the market is as hot as it has been, there are some people that just sit back on the sidelines and like, I'm going to let the, I'm going to let the amateurs play for a while and then I'm going to get back in. It's just like the stock market. Like when the market gets overheated, people pull out and they invest in other things. And like you said, I bet you some of those people that were rehabbers or buying deals after the last downturn, they probably turned into lenders, right? They're like, I can't make as much money on this, but I know the game and I'll lend to people. And they just kind of play different roles. And it's like moving from stocks to bonds. I'm just going to shift around to different things based on the climate in the market. And so basically a lot of these people that have been lending over the last few years that used to be bigger rehabbers, like some of them will shift back into rehabbing when effectively Black Friday happens, right? Like things are going to go on sale.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I mean,
Yep.
that exact circumstance happened here. Local investor of mine didn't have the ability to pick up any more inventory and simultaneously not trying to have that money sit there stagnant. So it made sense to put it to work from the lending perspective.
Yeah.
Everything
I posted a message on Facebook. This is like a month or so ago. And I was like, in my, I don't know if it was in a Facebook group, like a local Dallas Fort Worth market, or just posted on my page, but I was like, who do you think are the top 10 investors in DFW? And there were all these names that popped up, many of which I didn't even know. It's my market, which is pretty rare. And there's some real big dogs that have been around for decades. And like most of them didn't get mentioned. And I'm like, it's just this interesting observation, I guess. I don't know.
they know how to use the corporate umbrella. I mean,
yeah. Well, but I mean, it's just like the people that are out on social media that are showing up to the RIA events and, driving around in fancy cars and they're flashy about it. Like that's not, I mean, there's a bunch of people that aren't on social media that are big dogs that just aren't out there. So I think that's probably one other thing is like what you see on social media doesn't fully encompass the whole real estate community in your market. There's a whole bunch of people that are kind of below that radar because they don't want to be that guy.
Social media created another real estate market. I mean, in my opinion, I guess I'm old enough to say I was around before social media was. And the entire Facebook, Instagram, social media marketing arena is relatively new, but it's intriguing.
Yeah. Yep. So let's talk about funding. So that's another important thing is like, we talked about it a little bit, but what you don't want to do is when the market takes a downturn and then all of a sudden the lenders you've been relying on are like, hey, I'm out, or, for one reason or another, they're out, is I think it's important to have more options to lend to. So you should be building those. If you haven't been doing that already, you should be building more relationships. You should have more relationships than ever when we're coming into a downturn, because some of those relationships are going to die or they're just going to go away, right?
Absolutely. I mean, local lenders, your local banks and credit unions, developing a relationship there. Everything I'm more in tune with is done through Roth IRAs or retirement accounts. And for that matter, just 401ks as well. But at the end of the day, it comes back to relationships. I developed relationships through a proven sales history with them making investments and making money that got me access to the lending side or to those funds. Kind of.
The other thing too is I know, so during the last down, because I started in 08, so I kind of started when the downturn was starting really, is that back then, people were a little more diligent with proof of funds. Like they wanted to see a bank statement and not just some write-up that a hard money lender gave them that said, oh, he's approved for up to $2 million. It's like, you give those to everybody, right? So they wanted to actually see, do you have proof of funds? And so I think it's important to not just have somebody that says they'll lend, but somebody that that can prove that they're going to lend, right? Because most lenders would be like, I want you to prove it. Like, don't just show me a piece of paper. Like, show me that you have the funds or that your lender has the funds. So
that $2 million pre-approval letter, is it actually cash equivalent, comes down to who is the lender.
Right.
I mean, can they perform in a limited time cycle? And in the industry that I'm in, it all comes down to solving the seller's problem. And a lot of the times the problem is a timeline. It needs to be done immediately, or it needs to be done open-ended using a suitable housing contingency or something along those lines. But I mean, liquidity is king. If you don't have yourself personally, and I can't say that I am personally liquid, but or surrounded by individuals that are liquid, it's difficult to make it in the real estate market. Now, I mean, Buffalo compared to Texas, we're much lower value. The volatility when the market does correct is not going to be as instrumental. We haven't seen the same growth that you guys have, or the Texases, the Floridas, where there's going to be major opportunities. Statistically speaking, we've always been poor. I mean, a single family residential suburban starter home in our area, 150 to 200. I mean, in Texas, correct me, what's 2,000 square foot going for in Texas, or 1,500 square foot?
You know, it's really not, it's gone up a lot here, but I'd say, I used to say the median was like 180. I think now it's probably closer to 280 over the last like 5 or 6 years, median price point. But you could, you still get houses for 100, 150,000, not many anymore. And of course you can buy really high end stuff, but yeah, I think median is probably, I haven't looked this year through all the COVID stuff. It's probably close to 280.
I mean, my specialty is single family residential. And even when the market does correct, there's still going to be FHA and VA insured loans and buyers out there in the starter home, single family residential arena. So in my opinion, I'm not as exposed as other individuals playing in the multifamily and the bigger markets.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing is back in 08, so like 2008, 2012, let's say, in this market here, we would still, so I was primarily rehabbing. I just always preferred to rehab. So depending on, what your exit strategy is for those of you that are listening, I generally believe when, there's going to be less wholesalers. It's easier. It has been easier to wholesale. And when you're in a major market, like if you're in any major market, there's always an ecosystem of people doing all these things. Right. But I think, when we were listing houses, rehabbing them and listing them 08 to 012, it was rare that we had a house on the market for more than 7 days. And people think that's crazy, but it's like, well, I just built a better mousetrap. Like I bought it, knowing that I can sell it at a fair price, and it's the nicest product. And so we would list houses, and the house across the street might've been on the market for 3 months. We buy it, rehab ours, list it, sell it, close on it. And that one's still listed. It's because there's people that are emotional buyers, like they're not investors. They're more of, or they paid too much as an investor, but they lived in the house. They're like, well, I painted, that used to be my son's room and I painted it. Like the next person does not care at all. Right. And they're like, they're looking at their tax value, which hasn't gone down, even if the market's gone down, or they're looking at what the market value was 2 years ago. And it's like, none of that matters. I'm an unemotional buyer and seller. Like I'm just trying to get the first in line. And that's how you have to position yourself.
So that's a huge misconception when you said tax value, that property assessments and property values are the same. And just, I guess, a shiny object that caught my attention as you mentioned it.
Yeah. But people think that though. They're like, oh, my house is worth 300. It's like, according to who? It's like, well, the tax value. It's like, well, are they bringing you a check for 300 right now? Or are they're just,
Yeah, I mean, koi pods don't have a place on an appraisal adjustment. For that matter, in ground pools and things along those lines, you're talking more marketability than value. Right. The contributory value is not there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, for those of you that are listening, I think, hopefully we got our point across here is the shift is coming. I'm not going to be a doomsday person and say it's going to be terrible, but it always creates more opportunity for us. And so this is a big opportunity for us. I mean, most real estate investors make the most money during downturn. So just be prepared for that. Anything to add on that, Phil?
The big question is when. Thought COVID was going to burst the bubble. Does the election burst the bubble, and how long can it stay artificially stimulated? If you can answer those questions, or if I could answer that question, I'd be rich.
Yeah, no doubt. But hey, you've been a member of Investor Fuel for a little while now. Would you mind just kind of sharing a quick testimonial on how your experience has been with Investor Fuel?
And thank you guys for everything. It's been truly beneficial. I was kind of anticipating no hard feelings, the rah-rah upsell environment, and that is absolutely not the case. I understand now why they call it the Fuel family. Everybody's very open and there to help one another's business grow. There's an extreme amount of value and knowledge. That's the most valuable asset, in my opinion.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Yeah. We don't even have anything to upsell. Maybe we need to come up with that, but awesome, man. Well, hey, if folks wanted to reach out to you, if you're in the Buffalo area and you want to do any deals, or if you just want to follow along with what Phil's doing, where's a good place to connect?
They can shoot me an email, phil@buffalobrickandmortar.com. Shoot me a message on Facebook, either through Buffalo Brick and Mortar or my personal page, Phil Greiner. Also find me on the web at buffalobrickandmortar.com.
Awesome. We'll add those links down below. Phil, thanks for spending some time with us today.
I hope this wasn't too painful for you.
No, good stuff. And everybody, hey, thanks for joining us today. Hope you got some good value. We're going to keep it coming at you. I think we're well over 1,500 podcasts now across Flip Nerd, Investor Fuel, and the Professional Real Estate Investor Show that we've been doing. So got a lot of great content. You can access all of it on flipnerd.com. Of course, you can see all of our Investor Fuel shows on investorfuel.com. If you're interested in checking out Investor Fuel and learning more about it, just go to investorfuel.com. You can schedule a call with us and we'll jump on the phone and see if it's a fit for you. So appreciate you a ton. We'll see you guys in the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.